So I did something fun the other day. I took a tour of juniper-level botanical gardens in Raleigh, North Carolina. I got off the bus, I looked up, and I saw an asparagus spear tall as a house, 20 feet high if it was an inch. I got very confused, and then I got very hungry because I remembered that I love asparagus. But then I remembered something else which made me very thirsty. Juniper Level Botanical Garden is known, among other things, for its enormous collection of agave plants. Agave is a genus of these cactus-looking species that grow in the hot and dry parts of the Americas. North Carolina normally is not dry enough, but the head guy here, Tony Avent, he's famous for gardening up on berms like this. You keep the roots out of the winter water and you can grow desert plants in the swampy south. Anyway, agave. If you cut off the leaves, you'll find a fleshy core, technically the stem. This is the piña, and it's full of carbohydrates that you can ferment into tequila, or mescal. Just because I don't want to hear about it from the booze nerds on the internet, let's go ahead and explain that mescal used to be the name for any kind of distilled spirit made from any species of agave. Then this particular kind of mezcal from a particular species of agave called blue agave and made in a particular region came to be really popular, and that stuff was called tequila. So popular that eventually got genericized, and now people refer to any kind of agave spirit as tequila. And they often reserve the term mezcal for tequilas that are smoky. But originally, mezcal just meant any kind of... This is enough that anyone needs to know, for God's sake. I'm just going to say tequila because tequila is the word that people know. When you farm any kind of agave for tequila, you have to watch them carefully because they will mature and then send up a little flower stalk in the middle. And when you see that little stalk coming up in the middle of the agave, you have to cut it off fast because you want the plant to conserve its energy. You don't want its sugar going into a new flower stem that it's going to grow out the center. No, you want it to save its sugar right there in the core because those are the sugars that you're planning to ferment. And if you do not prune the flower stalk, then this is what it might look like in just a few weeks. This is not a giant asparagus spear. It is the temporary reproductive appendage of the Cabo Wabo plant. It is an agave flower stalk. So why does it look so much like asparagus? Well, because they're related. This meal is a family reunion, the family Asparagaceae. They tried to deny it for years, but back in the 20th century, agave was taxonomized as a completely different family, but it took a DNA test and found out that it's 100% that stock, which is surprising because agave doesn't really look like asparagus, right? It looks like a cactus. But it is not a cactus, it just looks like one because it evolved thick, fleshy leaves in the desert for the same reason that cactuses evolved thick, fleshy leaves in the desert. It's a water storage strategy. Convergent evolution has given us many such plants that we call succulents. They look related, but they're not. They're just all adapted for the desert. Agave is more closely related to the aloe genus, which probably shouldn't surprise you now that you look at it, right? It's even more closely related to the yucca genus, and notice that I said yucca, not yucca. Yucca, cassava root, one of the most important starches in human diets all around the world. That's a different plant botanically than yucca. Yucca is straight up in the Asparagaceae genus, along with asparagus and agave. Oh, for example, the Joshua tree is Asparagaceae. Now this plant I remember looking at in my yard and it sent up a stalk and I thought, well, that kind of looks like asparagus. And then it kept growing and it produced little fruits and I was totally confused until I went to the National Zoo in Washington, D.C. and I was like, why is that lemur eating the plant that's in my yard? And I got out my phone and looked it up and yeah, it's some kind of yucca. And then like a year after that, I went to this garden in Raleigh and they said, here, these flower petals from this yucca, they taste like asparagus. And holy crap, they do taste like asparagus because yuccas are in the Asparagaceae family. And lots of Asparagaceae species are poisonous, so maybe don't eat them unless you know what you're doing, or you could think about just procuring your vegetables from HelloFresh, sponsor of this video. This box came to the house when I was away in North Carolina, so my wife Lauren had to cook it. That was fine. She was kind enough to shoot the entire experience on her phone.
You got me this time.
She tends to get hangry and then she just stares into the fridge, unable to actually decide on something to cook, so HelloFresh breaks that deadlock for her. And because she's cooking for herself, she can adjust to her tastes, which are different from mine.
I think mushrooms are disgusting and I'm making this only for me, so I'm only putting in a few.
Well, I love all farm fresh produce equally, and the stuff that comes in your HelloFresh box arrives perfectly pre-portioned for the meal that you are cooking. This offsets delivery emissions and minimizes annoying leftovers. Pasta looks good there, honey.
I have to do the Adam.
And how about some dessert? Go to HelloFresh.com and use code AdamRagusiaSweet. You'll get a free dessert for life. One dessert item per box while subscription is active. That's AdamRagusiaSweet at HelloFresh.com for free dessert for life. Thank you, HelloFresh. Anyway, agave and yucca are in the asparagus family. So are lots of house plants, and they get sold as asparagus fern, which I guess is kind of a botanical misnomer, because true ferns do not produce flowers or fruits or seeds. They produce via spores. That's the whole point of ferns. They're these primitive plants that reproduce via spores, like bacteria or funguses. In contrast, the whole point of a stalk from an Asparagaceae species is to stick a flower up into the air for pollination and or dispersal of its seeds. No asparagus-type plant could possibly be a fern. They're too sexual. So does this mean that asparagus and tequila are literally the same thing? Can I tell my doctor that I had 5 servings of vegetables because I had a 5th of Patron? No, obviously. I mean, with asparagus, you're not even eating the same botanical part. This is not the flower stalk of the asparagus plant. It's actually a shoot. It's a new stem that's just coming up from the ground, and while it's young, it's nice and tender, just like a bamboo shoot. As they get older, they literally turn to wood, bamboo and asparagus. Whereas these on the agave are not shoots, they're just flower stalks, and no one eats them as far as I know. They just look like asparagus because most of the stemmy parts of Asparagaceae species tend to look like that. Smooth, straight stems with pointy bracts that space out wider and wider as you get toward the ground. So that's why asparagus and agave look alike, but they are as different as any two members of any family can be different. Remember that humans share a taxonomical family with apes, chimps, gorillas, and stuff, right? Now, there's 2 different ways that you could take that little reminder that I just gave you. One would be to think, oh yeah, I mean, humans and chimps, so totally different. I mean, humans are these noble creatures with a soul made in the image of God, right? And then the chimp is just a beast, you know, a mindless, soulless beast made so that humans could have dominion over them or something. I don't know. So you could say that chimps are nothing like humans, and therefore Adam Ragusia was engaging in some particularly shameless clickbait when he put up a thumbnail that sort of implied that tequila and asparagus might in some way be the same thing. They are as similar as chimps and humans. You could take it that way. But here's another way to take it. You could think, oh my God, humans and chimps are really similar. Like, you are a person. In fact, this chimp is like 99% the same genes as I am. Tiny, tiny differences account for the rest. So yeah, that's how I look at higher primates, and with those same eyes, I remark and think that it's pretty neat that agave and asparagus are in the same family. Don Julio is as related to asparagus as I am to Curious George. That's neat. I mean, this is neither here nor there, but it amazes me that anybody who cooks can fail to grasp the truth of basic evolutionary biology, right? Like one time there was this guy who commented on one of my videos saying that science has failed to show that humans and animals are alike in any way at all. And I'm like, dude, are you insane? Haven't you ever cooked a chicken? How can you get inside a chicken and be looking at its skeleton and think, oh, it's got like femurs and all of the basic bones that I have, and it's got all the major organs that I have, and the major tissues are all kind of built in the same way and arranged in the same way on the micro and macro level. How can you look inside a chicken and not notice that we're all part of the same lineage of life? Well, regardless, the rich lineage of life is something that you can appreciate at the Juniper Level Botanical Garden in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is a nonprofit research garden, and so there's a link in the description if you want to join me in making a donation. And if this video does well, I might show you some other edible curiosities from the Carolinas.